So, Blue Beetle, the comic book movie that nobody asked for, about a B-list character that nobody other than diehard fans even heard of, is actually quite a good movie. Let's get into it. Based on the comic book of the same title, Blue Beetle is a DC Films' latest movie. It stars Jolo Maridueña as Jaime Reyes. He has just graduated from Gotham University. He's about 21, 22 years old. He's coming home from Gotham Uni back to his hometown of Palermo, I think it's Palermo City, which is a fictional city in the DC universe. If Metropolis is New York, Palmyra would be like Miami, would be my best guess. Anyway, he comes home to his family to find that they are actually in a bit of financial trouble. The neighbourhood is being bought up by the big bad conglomerate Cord Industries. More on that later. So he gets a job with his sister cleaning rich people's houses. While on one of these cleaning jobs in one of these rich houses, he bumps into Susan Sarandon's Victoria Cord, along with her niece Jenny. Jenny is played by Bruna Marquezine. Apologies if I'm butchering that name. There's probably going to be a lot of Latin names being butchered by myself, so apologies in advance for that. Anyway, he bumps into those two while cleaning their house. Victoria and Jenny are at odds with the direction of the company, of the family company. They're also at odds with the specific application and use of this powerful alien-type weapon device they have found. Jenny steals said device, gives it to Jaime to hide, and this kicks off the plot. It's not like the Blue Beetle is one of DC's flagship characters. You know, it's not a Batman, a Superman, or Wonder Woman. So when it was announced that they were making a Blue Beetle movie, that it was going to be like a cinema release and not like back then, not like a HBO Max, Disney Plus style movie or show, I think everyone was kind of like, really? A Blue Beetle movie? Why? However, I do remember the exact same reactions when Marvel announced they were making a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Back then, I think the vast majority of the movie-going public were kind of like, who? But look how Guardians of the Galaxy turned out. Now, I'm not saying that Blue Beetle is on the same level as Guardians of the Galaxy, but it is a good, enjoyable, if, by the numbers, movie. Speaking of Marvel, it's hard not to draw comparisons with some Marvel properties to Blue Beetle. There's definite tones of Ant-Man and Spider-Man, and structurally wise, in terms of the good guy versus the bad guy, there's even hints of Iron Man in terms of the structure of the story. But if you're going to borrow from the best. Cast-wise, everyone does a good job with what they're given. Jolo Maridueña carries the film quite comfortably. His supporting cast that surrounds him also helps bolster him and helps his performance along the way. I think he's actually given a lot more to do here than he is in the breakout show that he's known for, which is Cobra Kai, which is a good show on Netflix. Check it out. Yeah, he's given more to do in Blue Beetle, both showing his range from lovable, likeable, and humorous young guy through to emotionally affected and traumatized. Not to go into too much spoilers, but yeah, he does a good job carrying this movie, but he is supported by the surrounding cast. You've got Susan Sarandon, who's not exactly reinventing the wheel with her character. She is playing a very by-the-numbers corporate villain, but it's Susan Sarandon. It's, even Susan Sarandon on autopilot with a very, fairly one-dimensional character. It's still good. She's still Susan Sarandon. And as I said, the surrounding cast, specifically the family of Jaime, you've got George Lopez as his uncle, very much in the kind of comedy relief character. The actress playing his sister, playing his mum, his dad, his nana. The whole family, they're all very good. They're all very likeable, but crucially, they're all very believable. You totally buy into the closeness of that family and of that culture, and that's actually a huge part of this movie overall is the family and the culture. Something that actually took me by surprise with this movie was the social commentary that kind of runs throughout the movie. It's very subtle, but it's actually quite poignant and quite affecting. There's comments on racism, on classism, on corporate patriarchal traditions, on gentrification, on corporate greed. And there's nuggets throughout the movie that touch on them quite subtly, but quite poignantly and quite elegantly. So that was like a nice surprise. Like I was like, oh, I was expecting just like a basic, superhero origin story, which it is, but it's also got that extra layer of, like social political commentary, which I wasn't expecting at all. So yeah, kudos to the filmmakers for that. And speaking of being subtle, if you like this video, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, you know what to do. Subscribe. Thanks. Both the soundtrack and the score is pretty on point as well. I meant to check who the composer was before I did the video, but I totally forgot. Not sure who it is, but it kind of reminded me of the score for Stranger Things. And I mean that as a compliment. I don't think it's the same composers, but it reminded me of that. That's for the score. Soundtrack-wise, there's a couple of good needle drops that put a smile on your face throughout the movie. There's a Motley Crue song and a Cypress Hill song that are used unsubtly at very very obvious moments, but they still put a smile on your face. So score and soundtrack, both very good. CGI as well. Yeah, there's nothing drastically bad in this. It's all fairly acceptable. I don't really remember thinking anything like, ooh, that's pretty bad. Like, you did in The Flash and like you did with Indiana Jones and even like with Thor, Love and Thunder with, the floaty head thing. I didn't really pick up on any obviously bad CGI in this movie. There is obviously a fair amount of CGI, but it didn't feel overwhelming and it felt fairly good. Well, it's a fun, not too long, enjoyable, by-the-numbers superhero origin story from DC. It kind of feels like, again, much like The Flash, it feels like it's too little, too late. This is the penultimate movie in the old DC, even though I think James Gunn has talked about this being part of the new DC. This movie was obviously announced and had been shot before the regime change. Yeah, it's all very confusing what's happening with DC at the moment in terms of what is and what isn't part of the old continuity, the Snyderverse, if you will, and what's part of the new continuity, the James Gunn DC universe. Not sure where this one lies, to be honest. You can let me know in the comments if I've missed any official news announcements about that. I know James Gunn has talked about this movie, or at least this character being part of his universe going forward. I would very much like that. I remember thinking as I'm watching this, it would be, if there was a Justice League style movie, an Avengers style, Civil War style team up movie coming out next year that I knew Jaime Reyes / Blue Beetle was going to be a part of, I'd be quite hyped for that because it's a good fun character and I can see the interplay with Jaime Reyes and someone like, a Batman character or a Wonder Woman character, like that would be, the bants, as they say, would be quite cool between them. I would be hyped to see that. However, we've no idea if that's going to happen. Yeah, so again, like The Flash, this feels like it's too little, too late from DC films. But, time will tell, I guess. So I'm going to go with 7 out of 10 for a Blue Beetle. Very enjoyable, if by the numbers, superhero origin story. 2 of my kids were with me when we saw this, my 6-year-old and my 9-year-old. The 6-year-old also gave it 7 out of 10. Her favourite character was Jenny because, and I quote, she was cool. And my 9-year-old actually gave it 9 out of 10. He didn't have a favourite character as such, but his favourite moment were when they were talking about the symbiote and the symbiosis and the Scarab chat, because he's very much a fan of Venom and of Moon Knight. So chat of symbiotes, chat of Scarabs, his mind went to, oh, Venom and Moon Knight. So, he was happy with that and he gave it 9 out of 10. Probably a lot based on just the use of those 2 words. So there you go, 9-year-olds. It's an enjoyable but fairly by-the-numbers superhero origin story with a very likeable lead and likeable supporting cast. There is a couple of mid and post credit scenes to check out. One about a minute or two into the credits, a mid credits scene, and then one at the very end. The mid credits scene is the one you want to stick around for. That's I won't tell you what it is, but that's worth sticking around for. The one at the very end, you can skip that. It's just a little throwaway joke. It's not a big deal. You can catch it on YouTube. I'm sure someone will put it up. Yeah, if you want to check out more of my reviews, you can click here, and I will catch you on the next video.